I want to ask you how you would characterize the state of economic policy in South Africa today. You've gone, you with your colleagues, Ishmael and your colleagues, have gone through and shaped critical phases in the evolution of economic policy in post-apartheid South Africa, from the growth, employment and redistribution strategy geared to ASGISA, the new growth path. We spoke about MDP, and now today we talk about radical economic transformation. I don't know if that constitutes a policy or not, but that is the policy rhetoric points in that direction. How would you characterize the state of economic policy in South Africa today? Is there any basis for us to be concerned about the trajectory of economic policy in South Africa today?
Not at all. You see, I sometimes put it rather cheekily like this. South Africans like fashion. Perhaps too much. We would develop a policy framework, economic or otherwise. Once it's out there, before we have taken all the steps that are necessary to implement that policy and see its results, see its impact, we lose interest in it, and we all of a sudden want to explore something else. And all too quickly when we do that, we start to find faults, imaginary sometimes, in the policy that we already have in place. As a consequence, you would find this refrain from time to time: our policies are good. It is just their implementation that is failing us. You see, when you have made a policy, when you have developed a policy with a particular objective in mind, and in mind, you need then the discipline to implement it. It starts with popularizing the policy, by the way, because just developing the policy and having it in black and white is not always enough. You must make sure that the entire system of government is very big. I mean, one of the points I was making in Parliament again today, I said, if you thought that turning a vessel, the biggest vessel in the ocean, takes long, wait until you work in government. So there's a sense in which, if the discipline, therefore, to execute policies, in golf they call it follow through. When your golf club comes into contact with the golf ball, if you hold back, usually the direction or the distance will not be long enough, or the direction will not be accurate enough. So you must follow through. I never mastered it, that's why I quit golf. But we need follow through. So I would say that the state of policy in South Africa isn't bad. No one disagrees with the fiscal policy stance that we've taken. I mean, I read reasonably a lot of stuff. I may have missed something over the last couple of hours. Someone may be saying that we need a higher deficit than we have now, or we need higher taxes than we increased them this year, and we would welcome such proposals, of course. Or we need to cut expenditure more. I've not come across anyone who is violently opposed to the fiscal policy stance that government has taken. I have not come across anyone recently who says they don't like the inflation targeting framework that the South African Reserve Bank follows, prescribed for it by the National Treasury, but implemented by them at an operational level independently. I've never heard anyone who says it does not make sense to have a flexible exchange rate, which serves as a valuable shock absorber in the event that there is some shock in the system. And this has been the case even when the exchange rate depreciated quite sharply at times. People accept that those macroeconomic policy frameworks make sense. No one disagrees, even with the fact that we need an economy that grows faster than the rates that our economy has been able to achieve in recent history. Even if you go back to around 2010, 2011, where the economy rebounded from a contraction during the global financial crisis to growth rates of about 3.2, 3.5%. Even those growth rates were inadequate. As the NDP sets that aspirational target of over 5%, we do need it. We need faster growth. We need growth that is inclusive, creates opportunities for most South Africans, able-bodied, of working age, because you would never crack the problem of inequality if next to a large number of economically active people, you have zero. Because when people don't have jobs, don't have incomes, then next to their observation, it's a zero. So you need to create work opportunities for those people. There can be no fight about that. What then is the problem? Because before you think that I live on another planet, I've indicated the issue of people liking fashion or good things falling out of favor with us. What then happens in the policy discourse is that some people would introduce elements which can only serve as a distraction in the process of policy making. What do I mean by this? If, for instance, let's take a very delicate issue like land reform. I mean, I'm close to retirement, I can say certain things. Once you start to talk about redistribution of land outside of the parameters that our constitution and other laws allow, I usually say to people, then you are on a road to nowhere, because what that does is to generate energy and divert attention towards whether that may be something to do or not. And whilst you are busy with that, you don't think about solving the real issues, which are, for instance, in relation to land. The reality that some of the land that has been redistributed already may not be used as effectively and as productively as it should, right? And therefore, you may need programs to skill the people who have the land, to assist them in whatever way necessary and possible to put that land to productive use. Similarly, attention gets diverted from other options that are within the realm of what is probable, such as, for instance, looking at giving titles to land or title deeds to land that is in rural areas, which would, in my view, fall within what you call radical transformation. Because I can assure you the people who occupy land in rural areas under the current permission to occupy system would be exceedingly happy to have title deeds. All of a sudden, land that may not truly have market value, may only have value in use, over time now, there may be a very active market for it. All of a sudden, people may be able to use the land as collateral. They may be able to make physical improvements of mega proportions because they no longer fear that anything can happen to see them lose the land without being compensated for it equitably and fairly as the Constitution requires. So I'm saying, and of course, the first point about helping the people in those rural areas also utilize the land more productively and designing appropriate programs for that purpose is also relevant. Now, before I get lynched, this is not to suggest that accelerated redistribution of land is irrelevant and is unnecessary. It is relevant, it is necessary, and it has to be pursued with a lot of energy, with a lot of vigor, and dare I say, within the framework of the law. Right? You need to do that. But for most South Africans to be focused on that as we pursue it, it is very important that you can't accelerate that process if and when every hectare of land that you transfer gets less productive than it was previously. Because your success becomes your failure. Your success at redistributing land then becomes a failure in terms of food security, agricultural production, agricultural employment. So you can't do that. So that's where then it becomes important that the conversation on policy has got to be a little bit more nuanced than you sometimes find it. There has to be things that you say they are not within the realm of what is probable and what is possible. Because if you spend too much time, let's say that within my hands here is what is doable, what is probable, what is practical within the framework of the Constitution, the law, and everything. But all you talk about is what falls outside. That's wasted time and energy. What you should be talking about is what can practically be done, can practically be achieved, can change people's lives in reality. Otherwise, you're wasting time.